Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Dock Edge Schools and this screening of Objector. Uh, it's my pleasure to introduce Alicia Adar, and I'm
Right?
Matthew Donaldson, and we are Dock Edge Schools.
Woo!
More than that, though, we would like to thank everybody at Dock Edge who have worked so hard to make this festival a success this year, and incredibly challenging times with COVID and so on. So we are very lucky to have also the support of the Ray Foundation, who have really made this entire thing possible and believed in us to make it happen. So we're very proud to actually deliver uh, and make this happen. Um, Now, today's movie is Objector, and it is about the courage of one young woman to defy the mandatory military service in Israel because she doesn't believe that the occupation of Palestine is moral or ethical. So it's going to raise some very big issues about war and peace and personal belief versus collective good. We are super lucky to have two guest speakers today. We have Tamkeen Sayed from the Peace Foundation, and we have Ilan. I've forgotten Ilan's last name. We can find that in
Lumberg.
Blumberg, who is a former Israeli army officer, and we will hear his personal account of working in the Israeli military and not being entirely thrilled with how the Palestinians were treated and his decision to extricate himself from the military. So stay tuned for that. Now, we are in an interactive forum here, so we would love to get your questions. Watch closely, listen closely, and in the chat box, you can, hey, Morena, Sasha, Morena South Seas. Great. Okay. Well, yes, do feel free to join us. Um, but particularly for the question and answer session, it's going to be very illuminating. And if any of your students come late to actually watching the doco, they can watch the documentary afterwards. All of the documentaries are free to watch up until July 3rd at any time that suits your schedule. Um, if you would like to come on stage and we have more of a bit more of a personal interaction, there's this icon. Sorry, this one. And you can click that to come up on stage and be on camera if you're brave and all of your tech is working. We recommend that it's Firefox or Chrome. We've had some problems with Internet Explorer and Microsoft Edge, but yeah, we'll solve all of those problems as we go. But um, are we all ready to go? Are we happy to go? Um, some people have had some problems playing, so I just want to reiterate that the most important thing is that you've clicked the create new account button through that invitation email that I've sent. If you haven't clicked that, you won't be able to watch. So email me now if you haven't done that, or if you go to push play and you have some tech dramas. Alicia's going to put both of our emails in the chat box. So if you do strike any tech trouble, you just email us and we'll sort it out and we'll wait for you in the Q&A room afterwards. For the moment, though, you can also see that she has put in the link to the movie, which is schools.dockedge.nz film Objector. Give that a click. Did you have anything to add there, Alicia?
Um, Popcorn and pineapple lumps at South Sea.
Popcorn and pineapple lumps.
Oh, it's
Do keep.
Frozen. They're going to reboot.
Okay. Well, let me just come back to this. The important thing is to keep this webinar jam window open, and we'll close off the camera and the audio. So just keep it open, and we'll come back to this for the Q&A session. You'll hear my voice come through when the credits start rolling, and we will be all good to go. Sasha,
So
can
we
you
have
just give us? Mhm.
so we have Kaylin Wade and Holly Beckham here too.
Hey, Kaylin. Hey,
Um,
Holly.
but yeah, if Sasha can let us know when you are back in. That'd be great.
Cool. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's knows the drill by now, but we will wait a couple of minutes just to have her back in. Um,
Why don't you tell us why you chose this film to be in the program?
well, this is it's really one of the big issues of our time. I I was inspired by a family friend who was basically quite a grandfatherly figure, and I grew up with him. And as I journeyed into trying to understand the world a little bit more about war and peace, um, I learned that he was a conscientious objector in World War II, and I had no idea that in New Zealand, uh, conscientious objectors who refused to go to war were put in prison. He served five five years, um, and in fact, in the education kit, which you can download from the webpage, there's a YouTube link to my interview with him 20 years ago. So the more I've looked into the issue, the longer I see it going back further and further and further. And there are land issues, and there are religious issues, political issues, racist issues. Um, Not just referring to this particular moment in time, but it does affect, and there are financial and economic issues as well about how some states have been used to protect oil interests, and there's a whole lot of political, economic manipulation going on behind the scenes as well. Um, but the very fact that at the core level, when someone thinks that killing someone else is wrong, one of the basic tenets of Judeo-Christian belief, thou shalt not kill. Um, I think all of that political, historical, problematic territorial issues kind of evaporate. And when someone says, "No, I don't believe it's right to kill someone," then they have a moral right to assert that. And it was really powerful to me to see someone have the courage to stand up to someone to their own government, to their own country, and say, I will not be compelled to do something which I spiritually don't believe in. So yeah, no, and I mean, I feel a great affinity with that point of view, and so did my grandfatherly figure. And if you'd like to watch that interview, it was shot 2001 after the terrorist attacks on 9/11 in America, and when there was a big war spirit coming, and there was talk of conscription, mandatory military service coming back in, and it made me think about, would I go to war for in the New Zealand Army to support the United States Army against Iraq or against Afghanistan? And I was like, no, absolutely not. Um, so so yeah, no, these are all big questions, and hopefully we'll have a few answers. And I can see that we have Sasha back now, so that's good. If anybody has any tech trouble, our emails are in the chat box there. But for the moment, we will go. If you just click on that link, which Alicia has posted, schools.edge.nz film Objector, hover your cursor over play now, and when I say go, we'll push play together and come back for Q&A at the same time. Okay, 3, 2, 1, play now. Just push play. If you get a sign up message, email us now and we'll sort you out. But in the meantime, enjoy the movie. Thanks, Ray Foundation. Thanks, Doc Edge. So, for those of us who have rejoined, welcome back, Alicia. I'm glad we
Thanks.
managed to eventually troubleshoot all of those tech gremlins and get to see the film together. So, Sasha, when you say how they found Italia, you mean the documentary makers, or
Atalia's brother is one of the producers. Um, so
or
that
do you mean like the Israeli military, they came and got her, or what do you mean how they found her? So yeah, I mean, Alicia just pointed out that Italia's brother was a producer, so I think this this arose from their family wanting to draw attention to these issues, and I believe the filmmaker, first time filmmaker. So yeah, it's one of those passion projects where it's more about conveying a message than making money from a documentary. No worries, Sasha. Hey, Tamkeen, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Really good.
Hi. Awesome.
So, Tamkeen, you're from the Peace Foundation. Can you give us a bit of your background here? So we've got a few teachers and students in the audience. It would be great. Great if you
Yeah,
could let them
totally.
know who you are, where you're from.
Yeah. So, my name is Kinkeen. Like was said, I'm from the Peace Foundation. I came to New Zealand in 2001 as a refugee, and so I've been really involved in humanitarian work for most of my life. At the Peace Foundation, what we do is we coordinate with schools to do workshops on peaceful conflict resolution. So we have a peer mediation branch, but then also what I do is I run workshops with students on international peaceful conflict resolution. So I think that it's a really poignant connection with the movie here.
Mm, yeah, amazing. So for you, what was the most poignant moment? What was something that really struck you about either Italia's courage or the situation in general?
Yeah, I think so much of it was very touching. I remember when I watched it specifically, I wrote down this quote because it really stuck with me. Is when she said, "I ask myself, what can I do? I have the power to change things here." And being able to, and then just so many moments in the conversations she was having with the older members of her family as well, I think really struck a chord with me because it was something that I had seen as being quite relatable, especially to a lot of the young people watching. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an amazing feat of courage to stand up against military, to stand up against government when you're being compelled to do something like that. We're lucky enough to have Elon Bloomberg. Have I pronounced your name correctly?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. That's great. Welcome aboard.
Hi.
Um, so Elon is an ex-Israeli Defense Force soldier and has a particular relationship to the issues in this movie. Elon, if you could talk to that, I think we've got two or three teachers in the room right now. We'd like to hear a little bit about your story.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good to be back again. Yes, I enlisted in the IDF 20 odd years ago because I moved to Israel to live there, and conscription was a compulsory part of being there, and also I felt an important part in understanding Israeli life, culture, and society, and I was prepared and willing to do that. And I served 1 year in total, 6 months of that in the occupied West Bank, and 6 months outside of that, and left Israel a few weeks after completing my service in 1996.
And what was a moment for you that you realized that perhaps being a soldier on the West Bank um, wasn't in line with your personal philosophies and personal beliefs?
I always knew that I never believed the occupation was just and justifiable. And I did try and object to being in the West Bank, but I was told that military jail was my only other option to being in that base. And so I used a technical get out of jail free card and went overseas for a month to visit my parents who were living in New Zealand at the time. And when I went back to Israel a month later, I refused to go back to that base and was subsequently sent to another base to serve out the rest of my service.
I mean, it's so many levels of conflict, I imagine, because you would be in conflict with your commanders, you would be in conflict with your fellow soldiers, but you'd also be in conflict with Palestinians on the other side. It must have felt like quite an isolating experience. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you don't. I guess I felt putting that uniform on and carrying around that loaded M16 wherever I went for a year. I felt like I was. I'd never felt. Not the word isn't hated. I never felt I felt like a bully. I felt like I put this uniform on, and I was carrying this gun, and I had no intention of being an enforcer of anything. But just by the very fact of being a soldier, being in uniform, I automatically became that enforcer, that occupier, that aggressor, and it was very uncomfortable fit for me, and very very difficult.
So, Tom Keen, if I can bring you in here, in your estimation of the current conflict in Israel and Palestine, what steps do you think that individuals can take, as well as what steps do you think needs to happen on a community level and a governmental and an international level? I mean, it's not an easy question, and for you, after Tom Keen, but these are, if we want to work on solutions, we've got to work on how we go about enacting these solutions. So what are some thoughts from your perspective?
Yeah, well, that is a huge question, and I really tend to focus on more of the grassroots movements that we can all take part in, because I feel like that is the only way that we're really going to make changes, through people actually changing the way that they think and the way that they approach situations. So I feel like from an individual level, what needs to happen is there needs to be a very, very intentional action that we will make every day to try and go out and seek information that maybe challenges our own beliefs, and have conversations with people that don't think the same way we do. I think that currently there's such a risk of staying within our own little media bubble and our own little circle of essentially an echo chamber of what we think. So I think from an individual level, we need to start looking at every day taking steps to seek out perspectives that are different to our own, and that can happen on an interpersonal level, having conversations, being able to go out and find articles, read books, that kind of thing. On a community level, I think that ensuring that community is upheld is really important, but also that communities are working together. So I feel like there's a lot of value in community leaders being able to connect with one another and have shared interests in events that really bring people together. Ultimately, I think that the number one thing is that people need to be in contact and in communication with people on the other side, in whatever capacity that might take. I'm a little bit less sure about the possible changes that could be made at a higher level, because obviously my focus is so grassroots. But I think that in any situation, at any of these levels, always the most important thing is to be connecting with and empathizing with the people that you are working alongside, and knowing that what we're doing essentially is building a world together. We're not trying to fight for opposing things. We're trying to come together and learn how to share space in a safe way.
Yeah,
I don't know if that completely went around, dodged the possible answer of higher level change. So that's what I think.
Yeah, and it certainly is a complex situation with many moving parts.
Yeah.
Pretty much same question, Elan. What movements towards conflict resolution and peace do you think need to happen in this space at all levels?
Well, I think what Tamkin was just saying was really was very accurate, and I think one of the things that she said that I'm really sort of picked up on was the need to interact with people that are not of our sort of ideological persuasion, but we don't want to create this binary relationship of whereas us versus them, liberal versus conservative, Democrat versus Republican. I mean, it's all quite like you're either on this side or you're on that side. And I think if we can break down that barrier, saying, look, the liberals would probably say that they are more accepting of other opinions, but I think if we somehow create a relationship where it's not that dual nature of us versus them, I think that's the way to do it, and to recognize that, people who are not of the same opinion as us are not bad people, are not evil, are not aggressive. They want something, like in the case of Israel, they want a secure Israel and secure borders, and they want to be able to live their lives with their families in peace. And we all want the same thing, but we just want it for everybody else, not just for ourselves and our own family. We want it for the wider community, the wider society that's around us. And like even in the Jewish community within New Zealand, we don't listen to each other. There's only 5,000 of us, but there's over a dozen Jewish organizations. And how we can actually find common ground, I think, is the greatest challenge, is to try and not get our backs up against the wall. And it's easier said than done, because it happens to me all the time. When I'm challenged, I get my back up. But I think personally, if we try find a way to relax those boundaries and relax those gut reactions to saying, you think what, you believe what, and to try and sort of step back from that and see beyond the words and beyond the rhetoric, to actually understand that we're all after the same thing, but just believe in different ways of getting there.
From memory, there have been multiple attempts at creating a peace in the Middle East, usually brokered by the United States. Like I know that there's Camp David, and in the past there have been various leaders from Palestine and from Israel actually willing to get together and talk a ceasefire and talk peace, but those are few and far between. What do you think inhibits actual real movement there, and why do the hostilities keep on breaking out, do you think?
Well, I think for Israelis and for Jews, I think the perception is that if we give an inch, they'll take a mile, and if we allow them to come back to their villages, what happens if that village is standing in the place where my synagogue is? What do you do then? And Palestinians want, they want what they deserve, and what they believe is they need for a peaceful life. And it's, when you've got two people that want the same thing, the same piece of land, it's really difficult. And I don't know how you say, well, do we share it? How do we share it? How do we both win? And I think by having prerequisites, like, Jews have the right of return to Israel, but Palestinians don't have the right of return to their homes. And one of the things, the Jerusalem issue is obviously a very complex one, because it's been inhabited for 5,000 years, and everyone's had a piece of it, and it's everyone wants it. And how do you say you can have it, and you can have it, and you can have it? It's just it's very difficult. I don't know how you bridge that gap, how you promise everything to everyone, but no one gets anything.
Yeah, and I mean, there must be some divisive rhetoric going on at political levels between parties, I imagine. I'm not super familiar with the Israeli political process or party system, but it would be very easy to dog whistle some of these divisive points of view, especially when it's actually a matter of survival. Because let's be real, is that the conflict, it's not a conflict of ideas. There is actual artillery being fired from both sides, and it just I can understand the desire for peace and security from people within the Israeli state, but yeah, there seems to be a very uneven armament. The Palestinians don't have the same kind of firepower as the
I think the Israelis have always believed, naively or otherwise, that it'll be a deterrent if their opinion, their way is if the Palestinians throw a rock at us, we're going to throw it back, but with a missile attached to it or a bullet attached to it, and that will stop them from trying again. But that obviously doesn't work. And I think, when Israel comes to terms with the fact that the Palestinian cause is just and is not anti, one of the things in the film that was really quite pertinent was, I think, near the beginning of the film when I can't remember his name, but someone from the West Bank was being interviewed, and he said, look, we need to stress this is not an anti-Jewish movement. This is anti-occupation. And I think that's a powerful thing to say. It's a powerful thing for people to absorb, because there is so much fear in the Jewish community that it is anti-Semitic, that all the sort of the criticisms of Israel are driven by anti-Semitism, if not all of it, then a big part of it. And I've done my own research, and I found very little evidence to support that the move to end the occupation or the move to resist Israel's aggression is based on anti-Semitism. It's just not the case, and that's something that I would try and push, because it is very hard to separate Zionism from Judaism. For a lot of people, Zionism is completely wrapped up in their Jewish identity and their Jewish experience. It was for me. But we need to separate those two ideology, or separate Zionism from Judaism, and look at Zionism as its own flawed ideology.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very insightful comment, Ilan. Taking a slightly different tangent, Tamkeen and Alicia, Natalia commented that there's a strong movement within, the feminist movement, and particularly from a female perspective, to de-escalate some of this conflict. And she's such a brave character. Even her brother kind of took a little bit of a sidestep, but she was absolutely authentic in her point of view, that no, this was her genuinely held belief, and that she would take the consequences for it. What kind of role do you think women have to play in creating situations of peace where there's conflict?
You go, Tamkeen.
Okay, I'll start off. I think that, historically, women have always been seen as kind of the peacekeepers in the family, and that has a lot of connection with the way that they're viewed when it comes to wider conflicts. And so I think that there is a lot of value in acknowledging that there is a level of peacekeeping that has upheld the feminist movement for decades and centuries. And so I think it's a really valuable part of what needs to be happening at those levels of conflict. I think the movie does an amazing job at showing the different ways that women can be involved in the movement, and the different ways that women can really impact and have a high level of effect on a wide range of people. And I think it's incredibly empowering to see that even though maybe, she at the beginning of the movie at the beginning of the documentary, she didn't have a huge platform to be able to talk to all of these people, but as she kept persevering and understanding that there are barriers in her way, but that she needs to overcome, that eventually people started listening and people started to really take on board what she was saying quite seriously. I do think that there's still a lot that needs to be done by way of taking the actions of women more seriously in terms of international conflict, and being able to really acknowledge that what women have to offer in those spaces is very valuable as people that have historically been peacekeepers in the family and community environment. And I think that from what we see and from what I've seen in my real life, I think that in terms of creating that community and that community culture, that takes work from men and women, and that's, I think, a huge part of what the movie shows is that it's all about collaboration, working together, and it was her sister working with her brother, and her brother uplifting her voice, and I think that's really valuable, and it doesn't weaken either side of the movement.
Fantastic. Tamkin, now I know that you said that you would have to disappear by 12, so no worries if you have to dash off.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I will have to leave, but thank you so much.
Okay.
That's fine. Hey, we really appreciate your contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
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 Don't know how to.
I can do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Alicia, did you want to follow up on that question?
Yeah, sure. I'll put my 2 cents in. I think being Māori, and because Māori culture is traditionally matriarchal, it makes complete sense for me to see a female, be so strong and so brave and contribute to movements like that. Like, yes, we need to all work together. All genders need to work together. But yeah, I think that historically we've seen some incredible women lead certain movements, certain revolutions, and yeah, I think like culturally it also makes sense to me, like even thinking about people like Dame Whina Cooper, so, and I don't know if I know why. I think it's because also culturally I see women as having a certain level of sacredness, being for me it kind of goes beyond the physical world and into the spiritual world. Like who's doing something and why it might be different for a woman to pursue certain actions because of that aspect, if that even makes any sense. So yeah, the feminist movement has a lot of work to do because it traditionally has not been particularly intersectional. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
Oh, thanks, Alicia.
Yeah.
That's great. We have a student question here. Do you think it's possible that a lot of the answers will lie with the youth? In so much as that in the film, the grandfather had a set way of thinking, and then the parents start to change their minds based on the work that Italia was doing. Did you encounter this, Ilan? Did you have a generation above you really condemning you for what you were doing and were supported by younger people, or how did it go?
Above me, to the side of me, to the left of me, to the right of me, they're everywhere. But yes, I think it's always encouraging to see youth turn up and be proud and be strong and be forceful with their voices, and it's always really encouraging, especially someone like Atalia's age and Atalia's voice to be heard. It's I don't want to sort of say that the older generations are not able to be convinced and that we have to just sort of forget about them and sort of focus on the youth, because that's not fair and it's not true. And then the way we saw Atalia's mother become a lot more liberal in her views, and a lot sort of start to understand Atalia's perspective. And it's hard when you're younger and you're talking to an older generation. It's more difficult. But I do think that sort of the youth of today are a lot braver, a lot bolder than my generation were that's at the same age. And I'm hopeful that there's an evolution of consciousness that's going to keep building and building, and that the political will and the political sort of momentum is strong right now to sort of keep pushing for what's right and what's just. And it's definitely it's youth led, and that's very encouraging.
Fantastic. Now because we had a little bit of a late start to the Q&A, we're probably going to have to disappear in about 5 minutes. Firstly, are there any more questions from the students and the teachers in the audience? And Ilan, what would be your final thoughts for what you would say to young people in the audience trying to get their head around the complexities of this situation?
Sorry, I missed you. Say again.
Oh, sure. What would be your final thoughts about to young people? What kind of advice would you give to them as they try to learn about the current situation in Israel and Palestine and try to grapple with the complexities of it?
In 5 minutes, standing on one foot. I don't know. It is complex, and I'm still learning about it. And I lived there for 10, 12 years, and I speak the language, and I read the books, and I'm still learning so much about the conflict and about the particularly the Nakba, which was Israel's independence was somebody else's loss of state, and I guess one of the analogies that I sort of like to think about is that Jews felt after the Holocaust that they needed to jump, they needed to flee Europe, and so they jumped there in sort of the Jewish worldview is we had to jump out of a burning building, but unfortunately we landed on the Palestinians, and that is kind of what the sort of the fallback position is. A lot of Jews look, poor Palestinians, but our own survival comes first. And I don't know how you counter that, because that's a valid position to take in terms of educating yourself about the conflict and about the complexities of the Middle East. Read books, watch movies, talk to your friends, talk to whoever you can. There's no one answer. There's no one way. There's no one truth. It doesn't exist. You got to make your own truth. You got to find your own truth.
That's wonderful. Okay, I think we should wrap it there. But hey, really appreciate your time, Ilan. Thank you very much, Sasha and South Seas, and all of the teachers and students who have joined us for the movie and for the Q&A. We really appreciate you and your time, but also Ray Foundation for making all of this possible, as well as Dockage as well. Buy some tickets to the main festival, and we'll see you back for next year. But we'll see you back, Ilan, for our final session next week.
Great.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.